David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Breaking news as we come on the air. Growing nationwide protests following the deadly ICE shooting in Minneapolis. The rampage in Mississippi, multiple people killed at 3 separate locations, and the renewed urgent warning for Americans in Venezuela. First, protesters flooding the streets and cities across the country, anger boiling over as investigators pour through video from multiple angles of the moment an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good in Minneapolis. Overnight, more than 24 people detained. Police declaring an unlawful assembly. Late details on the deadly mass shooting in Mississippi. 6 people killed at 3 separate locations, a child among the victims. And what we're now learning about the suspect who's been arrested. A major breakthrough in the murders of a dentist and his wife in Columbus, Ohio. That woman's ex-husband is now under arrest. The evidence that police say links him to the crime. 1 week after the daring raid in Venezuela, the renewed warning for Americans in that country, what we've just learned, and President Trump's new threat to take military action against drug cartels inside Mexico. The new spike in flu deaths, the CDC estimates more than 7,000 Americans have died this season. Growing unrest in Iran, thousands taking to the streets despite a crackdown by the Iranian regime. President Trump's new message of support to the people and his warning to the leaders of Iran. An arrest warrant issued for Timothy Busfield, the actor and director facing a charge of child abuse during the filming of a TV series. Mission cut short. A crew member dealing with a medical issue on the International Space Station. Tonight, what NASA is saying about when that crew will head home. News about the economy, what the White House wants to do about credit card interest rates. Just in tonight, the passing of one of the founding members of the Grateful Dead.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with tensions rising across the country. Protesters taking to the streets after 2 shootings by immigration officers. Thousands of people marched across Minneapolis today, denouncing the fatal shooting of Renee Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, by an ICE agent. Protesters also gathering from Austin, Texas to Durham, North Carolina, and in Portland, Oregon, after a man and woman were shot by a Border Patrol officer. That couple accused of having ties to a notorious Venezuelan gang. The Trump administration staunchly defending the actions of the ICE agent in Minneapolis, as some Democrats are now calling for the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off from Minneapolis.
Tonight, from Philadelphia to Durham to New York and Minneapolis, demonstrators demanding justice following the deadly shooting of 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, the mother of 3 shot and killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis this week.
We've been telling them to get out. They're not leaving. They are not wanted here. They are not making our community safer.
New video showing the moments leading up to those fatal shots, now drawing intense scrutiny.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
Reportedly captured on the cell phone camera of ICE agent Jonathan Ross, accused of shooting and killing her. You can see his masked face in the vehicle's reflection as he circles her maroon SUV. Then another agent yelling at Good, ordering her to get out of the vehicle.
Out of the car. Get out of the car.
Agent Ross moves to the front of the SUV as it moves forward. He fires 3 shots, including 1 through the windshield. Good's vehicle then crashing into a parked car. Witnesses outraged.
Shame! Shame! What did the you guys do? You made a crime scene! You shot someone!
The Trump administration insisting the agent acted in self-defense.
I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making.
But Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey pushing back on the government's narrative.
We've got all 2 eyes, and I can see a person that is trying to leave. I can see an ICE agent that was not run over by a car. That didn't happen.
And calling for ICE to leave the city immediately.
We have been saying that if ICE keeps behaving the way that they are, that someone is either going to get seriously injured or killed.
And tonight, the investigation itself now under a microscope, the FBI taking over the probe. Thursday, President Trump seemingly acknowledging that the agency is not sharing evidence with Minnesota state officials who are now seeking their own investigation.
Well, normally I would, but they're crooked officials.
The lack of access extending beyond state officials. Today, Representatives Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, and Kelly Morrison say they were denied access to an ICE facility.
What happened today is a blatant attempt to obstruct members of Congress from doing their oversight duties.
As questions mount over transparency, tensions spilling into the streets.
We do not believe that the federal agencies that are now taking hold of this investigation are going to do a good job.
Though protests have been mostly peaceful, more than 24 people detained Friday night, police say, for unlawful assembly downtown after authorities moved to disperse the crowd. Thousands more gathering today.
And with tonight, some lawmakers are calling for suspension of these ICE operations, these ICE raids, others pushing to defund the agency or impeach DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Whit?
All right, Morgan Norwood, we appreciate it. Next tonight, the breaking news, a deadly mass shooting in Mississippi near the Alabama border. 6 people killed at 3 separate locations, and overnight, a 7-year-old girl is among the victims. What we've just learned about the suspect now in custody. Here's ABC's Alex Presha.
Tonight, authorities say that this man, Derek Moore, is behind one of the worst shootings in state history, leaving 6 people dead, including a 7-year-old girl.
There's some cases just that they've got to get the worst punishment.
The Clay County Sheriff says the suspect's trail of terror began just before 7 last night when the 24-year-old alleged gunman shot and killed his father, Glenn Moore, Uncle Willie Ed Guinness, and older brother Quentin Moore inside a home. Then he allegedly stole his brother's F-150 pickup, drove to another home, and forced himself inside, where they say he attempted a sexual battery with a handgun before killing a 7-year-old relative. He then allegedly drove to a third home, where they say he shot and killed 2 brothers, Barry and Samuel Bradley. Moore was later taken into custody without incident.
This family, to lose this many family members, at one setting, it's just hard to imagine. So that's the reason I'm saying they definitely need our prayers.
Wait, tonight authorities say that they are still searching for potential motive in what is now the deadliest mass shooting of 2026. Wait.
All right, Alex Presha for us tonight. Just 1 week after the deadly strikes in Venezuela, tonight the State Department renewing calls for Americans to leave that country. And it comes as President Trump is now threatening to take military action against drug cartels inside Mexico. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selina Wang.
Tonight, the U.S. renewing their calls for Americans to leave Venezuela immediately. Just 1 week after the dramatic nighttime raid capturing the country's president, Nicolas Maduro. The State Department alerting U.S. citizens to take precautions because of reports of groups of armed militias known as colectivos setting up roadblocks and searching vehicles for evidence of U.S. citizenship or support for the United States. Tensions running high on the streets of Venezuela this week as the government searches for anyone they believed helped the U.S. execute that raid. Reports of paramilitary groups vowing revenge and enforcing curfews in some neighborhoods. Trump now claims the U.S. is running Venezuela and says he canceled a second wave of attacks because of cooperation with the new leadership.
People ask about the second wave. I don't think it's going to be necessary. We have an armada.
Those comments come as the president ramps up his threats on Mexico, Greenland, and even Colombia. Tonight, Mexico's president is urging closer coordination with the U.S. after President Trump threatens land strikes on drug cartels that he claims are running Mexico.
Presidente Trump.
Sheinbaum warns U.S. military action in Mexico would be a grave violation of the country's sovereignty, while insisting her government has been dismantling drug labs and increasing enforcement.
We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by water. And we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country.
And with President Trump is also escalating his threats to take Greenland from our NATO ally Denmark. When asked this week whether there's any limits to his power on the world stage, Trump said only his own morality, his mind, can stop him.
Whit.
Selina, Wang, our thanks to you, and tune into This Week tomorrow morning. Martha Raddatz has exclusive interviews with Senator Tina Smith about the deadly Minneapolis ICE shooting and with Republican Senator Rand Paul about reining in further military action in Venezuela. And more breaking news late today, the U.S. military launching large-scale strikes targeting ISIS in Syria. More than 35 targets were hit during the U.S.-led coalition strikes. It's part of an ongoing operation which started last month after the deaths of 2 Iowa National Guard soldiers and 1 American interpreter. Tonight, a stunning new development in the murders of a dentist and his wife in Columbus, Ohio. Her ex-husband now arrested and charged with their murders. The couple was found shot to death late last month. Their 2 young children also inside the home, but safe. ABC's Olivia Rubin with late details.
Tonight, a stunning arrest in the murder of an Ohio dentist and his wife. Police now charging her ex-husband with the gruesome crime. Monique and Spencer Tepe were found gunned down in their Columbus home on December 30th, police say. A concerned friend going over and finding a pool of blood.
There's a body. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed, and there's blood.
Now, police have arrested 39-year-old Michael David McKee. Court records obtained by ABC affiliate WSYX show Monique and McKee divorced in 2017 after less than 2 years of marriage. Those documents saying they are, quote, incompatible. Police searching for days, releasing this surveillance footage of a person of interest. According to a police affidavit, investigators identifying a suspect through surveillance footage, which they say showed a car arrived, quote, just prior to the homicides and left shortly after. Police soon saying they found that car in Illinois and linked it back to McKee. And Whit, tonight, the Tepe family says this arrest is an important first step towards justice. McKee is now facing 2 counts of murder and is set to make his first court appearance on Monday. Whit.
Olivia Rubin, thanks so much. Now to those record-breaking flu numbers for children. Nationwide, the death toll increasing 48% from the previous week. At least 15 million cases so far this season, with more than 40 states reporting high or very high flu cases. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimbert.
Tonight, a sharp spike in flu cases across the U.S., with emergency rooms filling fast, hospitalizations rising, especially among children and the elderly.
What we're concerned about is this is a very early rise in severe flu, which means that we're not even well into flu season. Of course, the concern here is that our hospitals are going to be underwater, not only to treat those with influenza, but to treat all other cases.
The rate of children visiting doctors' offices for the flu hitting a 10-year high, according to the CDC, with more than 18% of those visits being children under 4 years old. Nationwide, there have been at least 15 million reported illnesses, up from 11 million just a week ago, and 180,000 hospitalizations and 7,400 deaths.
While these numbers are incredibly striking, data often lags by 1 to 2 weeks, so we may not even see the full picture of influenza across this country as it's happening right now.
Doctors monitoring closely a new strain of flu, subclade K, a variant that's been circulating since the summer globally in countries like Canada, Japan, and the UK. Health experts say current annual flu vaccines are not perfectly matched with the new variant, but still provides protection against serious illness. A CDC study found 90% of children who died from the flu last year were not vaccinated. And tonight, pharmacies reporting a run on tests. Demand for over-the-counter cold and flu medications and at-home testing kits jumped 155% over the last 3 weeks, according to data from Walgreens.
Andrew Dimber joining me now. And Andrew, there's also a nurses' strike next week, potentially adding additional strain to overstretched hospitals.
Yeah, with thousands of nurses here in New York City could walk off the job Monday if a new contract with hospitals isn't agreed upon by then. It would be one of the largest strikes, nursing strikes, in New York City history, and would come at a time when the virus is still circulating at high levels, according to state officials. Whit.
Yeah, something to watch closely in the days ahead. Andrew, thanks. Overseas now to the growing unrest in Iran as the deadly protests nearing 2 weeks continue to spread. Demonstrators flooding the streets as the country's supreme leader threatens to expand the crackdown. President Trump is once again warning Iran's government and pledging his support to the people of Iran. Here's ABC's Marcus Moore.
Tonight, new images of the escalating violence gripping parts of Iran as tens of thousands flood the streets of Tehran and other cities calling for regime change. In this dramatic footage circulating online, a man with what appears to be a homemade flamethrower sets a motorcyclist on fire. They're only the latest images emerging of the chaos spreading in Iran. With pressure building, the country's leadership remains defiant as deaths mount in the streets. Aid groups say at least 65 people have been killed. The government imposing a communications blackout, cutting off the internet, cell phones, and landlines. Still, the protests that began 2 weeks ago have stretched into 13 straight days. People angry about severe inflation and a currency that has collapsed in value. Starting in the capital, then spreading to several other cities across the country, the protests have captured the world's attention, including the White House.
I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts.
With Iran's supreme leader saying the tens of thousands of protesters are trying to please President Trump, while tonight the exiled son of Iran's last Shah has called on people to continue protesting in the streets.
Marcus Moore, thanks so much. Back here in the U.S., and a note tonight about the economy. President Trump is now calling for a one-year 10% cap on credit card interest rates. That could potentially save Americans billions of dollars, but banks and other financial institutions are already pushing back, saying it would cut off access to credit for some Americans and small business owners. There's much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday, including the shocking charge against actor Timothy Busfield, why there's a warrant for his arrest. And we're following breaking news. One of the founding members of the Grateful Dead has died. Next tonight, the urgent search for a missing 12-year-old boy in Oklahoma. His mother and stepfather are now under arrest and facing multiple abuse charges. Police say they believe Ryan R.J. Reynolds is still alive. He's been missing since January 2nd. Police are now expanding that search and using volunteers to canvass neighborhoods. Actor and director Timothy Busfield is facing a charge of child sex abuse. A judge in New Mexico issued a warrant for his arrest. A child actor has accused Busfield of touching him inappropriately while shooting the TV series The Cleaning Lady. That boy is now 11 years old. Busfield won an Emmy in 1991 for his performance in 30-something. He later appeared on The West Wing. When we come back, breaking news, the passing of a rock legend. To the index now, we're just getting word Bob Weir, one of the founding members of the Grateful Dead, has died. The news just posted on his Instagram account. Weir was just a teenager when the band formed more than 60 years ago, and he played with its successor, Dead & Company, until last year. According to the post, he died of a lung condition after battling cancer. Bob Weir was 78 years old. NASA says a crew of 4 is now expected to leave the International Space Station on Wednesday. The agency says one of the 4 is dealing with a medical issue, so the crew is being brought home more than a month ahead of schedule. NASA did not identify the crew member or that person's condition, citing medical privacy laws. The SpaceX Dragon capsule is now expected to splash down in the Pacific early on Thursday. The college football championship is all set. Miami will take on Indiana. The undefeated Hoosiers earned their spot with a dominating 56-22 win over Oregon. Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza threw 5 touchdown passes in the win. Indiana advances to the championship game for the first time ever. You can watch them take on Miami on January 19th on ESPN. When we come back, David beats Goliath on the soccer pitch. Finally tonight, a remarkable day in English soccer, the Cinderella upset with a Hollywood flair.
After blown leads, late goals, and extra time, it came down to penalty kicks. Wrexham, the international darling, advancing in the FA Cup, upsetting Nottingham Forest 4-3 on penalties after a 3-3 draw. Nottingham Forest is a Premier League team, the highest level in English soccer. Wrexham plays one tier below. Friday's win is the first time in 26 years Wrexham defeated a Premier League club in this tournament. Ryan Reynolds, who owns the club with actor Rob McElhenney, celebrating from the stands. Under the Hollywood duo's ownership, the club is enjoying massive success.
To make a diamond, you have to have pressure.
Their FX docuseries Welcome to Wrexham, launching the club into a global brand, boosting revenue and attracting better players. The Welsh team rising from non-league soccer to the cusp of the Premier League in just a few seasons. The win sends Wrexham into round 4 of the competition. Another dramatic upset and another chapter in the rise of Wrexham.
And thanks so much for watching tonight. I'm Whit Johnson. Have a great night.
David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. And now, ABC's World News Tonight has won the Emmy for Best Live News Program for the third year in a row.